You like dragons? Imagine dragging these nuts across your forehead.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Janibek has officially been stripped of the IBF title for the doping violation, where the WBO chose to give him some understanding and some amnesty. The IBF was not so understanding, not so generous.
What else is new?
While one IBF titleist was spared his fate on Tuesday, the same could not be said for Janibek Boxing Scene has confirmed that the unbeaten Kazakh southpaw was stripped of his IBF middleweight title for a previous doping violation in a ruling distributed on Tuesday. The sanctioning body cited IBF Rule 18, covering drug testing, in its justification to relieve Alimkhanali of his reign and his belt. Alimkhanali is due to make a mandatory defense of his IBF middleweight title by July 4th of this year. The IBF must notify Janibek Alimkhanali of his mandatory defense on or around May 4th. IBF Championships Committee Chairman George Martinez outlined in a ruling obtained by Boxing Scene. The penalties imposed by Rule 18 prohibit Alimkhanali from being ranked by the IBF or participating in any IBF-sanctioned bout for 1 year following his suspension for an anti-doping violation. Alimkhanali's suspension by the KPBF is effective as of December of last year, and the resulting 1 year period of ineligibility therefore expires this December 2nd, much later in this year. Accordingly, Alimkhanali is unable to fulfill his mandatory defense obligation on July 4th of this year. On March 5th, 2026. The IBF Board of Directors participated in a teleconference to discuss this matter. A majority of the directors determined that, in light of the foregoing, the IBF middleweight title should be vacated immediately. As previously reported by Boxing Scene, Alimkhanali was issued a backdated 6-month suspension by the Kazakh Professional Boxing Federation that will run through June 2nd. The date is 6 months from December 2nd, when Alimkhanali was pulled from a Plant 3 belt unification clash with Arislandi Lara after testing positive for meldonium. Alimkhanali was due to risk his IBF and WBO titles versus Lara, the reigning WBA champion. The ruling by the KBPF triggered a similar disciplinary action from the Association of Boxing Commissions, who converted his indefinite suspension to one with a hard June 1st deadline. A separate ruling from the WBO left Alimkhanali unable to participate in its sanctioned bouts for a minimum of 1 year. However, the WBO suspension applies only to its title fight and eliminators, as sanctioning bodies do not have the authority to suspend a boxer beyond its own jurisdiction. So does that then mean that Janibek Alimkhanali can have a fight so long as the WBO doesn't sanction it? Regardless, he will be down to one title whenever he does return to the ring. Additionally, he will have to undergo continued random drug testing at his own expense and provide clean samples prior to his reinstatement. If he is in fact reinstated in a year's time, we don't even know if Janibek will be able to make middleweight, get down to 160, because Alimkhanali last fought in Kazakhstan. A knockout win over unbeaten Anuel Namasenge last April 5th in Astana. The local commission took control of the investigation. According to the final report, a copy of which was obtained by Boxing Scene, the KPBF determined that Alimkhanali ingested the substance in question from an emergency medical visit last May 7th. Alimkhanali reportedly suffered deteriorated health, at which point his relatives sought immediate medical assistance at the Adam Clinic in his Almaty hometown. The clinic's official medical report documents the following: acute severe headache, nausea and vomiting, dizziness, transient bilateral visual disturbance, limb numbness, and chest pressure.
The fuck happened to him?
The final diagnosis was that Alimkhanali suffered a transient ischemic attack from a vertebral-basilar insufficiency. His condition was described as in need of urgent therapeutic intervention, which came with an assortment of prescribed medication. Among the administered substances was Ripronat, which is legal in Kazakhstan but contains meldonium.
The IBF stripped him anyway?
Damn. The medical intervention, including the administration of Ripronat, was medically necessary, urgent, and professionally justified, read the KPBF report. The medical documentation submitted to the commission is legitimate, complete, and verifiable through the National Medical Registry.
The IBF stripped him anyway? Damn.
Alamkanalai stated that the brand name Ripronat did not lead him to associate the product with the prohibited substance meldonium, which is commonly known internationally through other trademark names, Midronate. An 8-person panel found Alamkanalai negligent to a minimal degree, which resulted in the backdated 6-month suspension. Upon his return to the sport, Alamkanalai, should he remain at 160, and with the WBO title still in tow, will have to face the winner of the April 4th Denzel Bentley versus Endri Savidra interim title fight in London. IBF officials have to rule on fulfilling its vacancy. However, it's believed that a title fight will be ordered between Atinosa Oliha and Shaquille Thompson, though it may require some work.
Thus, the middleweight landscape is set to change, whether Janibek Alimkhanalai likes it or not. But he's still a champion. He's still got at least one title there.
Sheffield's Thompson is the IBF's number 3 contender at middleweight, one spot below Italy's Oliha. However, the Brit is currently scheduled to next face countryman Brad Pauls on Queensberry Promotions' March 28th Magnificent 7 show in Manchester. It is possible that Thompson is pulled from the already rescheduled fight. The entire card was shifted from late January when headlining heavyweight Moses Atelma suffered an injury. Regardless, Oliha is the first in line to fight for the now vacant title.
The title that Janibek Alimkhanalai has held since a 6th-round knockout win over then unbeaten champion Vincenzo Gualtieri in their October 2023 unification match. He made 3 defenses of the belt and 5 overall with the WBO at stake. I don't see a lot of reason for Janibek Alimkhanalai to remain in the middleweight division even though he still has the WBO title, because by the time he's available to box again and the suspension is lifted, will he even be able to get down to 160 safely?
May as well move up, because in terms of money fights in the middleweight division, there are none there at this time, and even if there were, he's not available to have them. By the time he is, getting down to 160 could become a precarious situation, so I'm of the opinion he should move up to super middle, where landing fights might actually be a bit easier, since they won't be so timid around him, so scared. The difficulty he's had getting Carlos Adames in the ring and the fight between them, never materializing. I don't see any reason for Janibek to stay at 160.
Though as it pertains to 160, and what else is happening there, former champion Tszyu returns April 5th against Albania's unbeaten Dennis Nurja.
Tszyu begins his 2026 against Albania's unbeaten hopeful Dennis Nurja on April 5th at the Wynn Entertainment Centre in Wollongong, Australia, as a mooted summer bout with Errol Spence Jr. remains in the pipeline.
From the moment Tszyu versus Spence became a conversation, it was understood that Tim would have a tune-up fight before he shares the ring with Errol, if he does share the ring with Errol. Tszyu, rated number 7 by the WBC and number 8 with the IBF at junior middle, is taking on the WBA's number 12 ranked contender in a 157-pound catchweight clash.
Makes it a middleweight contest. For what is this tune-up fight, hard to imagine that Errol, as long as he's been out, he's not gonna have a tune-up?
I guess not.
Former WBO junior middleweight champion Tszyu made his debut under Miami-based trainer Pedro Diaz with a comfortable but workmanlike 10-round points win over Anthony Velasquez on December 17th. After this, the 31-year-old doubled down on wanting to remain active after a difficult career spell saw him lose thrice in 17 months, contemplate his sporting future, and question his abilities among world-class opposition.
This is going to be a second fight with Pedro Diaz,
which is actually a good thing because it gives the fighter and the trainer more time to gel and build a rapport. Italy-based Nurja, 20-0 with 8 KOs, has never been beyond 6 rounds in his 8-year career, and this opportunity marks only his 3rd scheduled 10-round contest. Tszyu believes his age-mate's resume can deceive detractors.
Wait, so the guy's never been 12 rounds?
He presents a challenge, big amateur pedigree, 8 national titles, fought at the World Championships at IBA level. He's been in there and mixed it up with a lot of the great fighters, so I'm motivated, inspired, and focused, he told Fox Sports Australia. I am 20-0 for a reason, and did not build that record by playing it safe. People are talking about Tim's comeback, but I am the one standing in front of him. I respect what he has done in the sport, but I believe this is my moment. I am coming to Australia to win, Nurja said in a press release.
During a live stream announcing the fight on their social media platforms, No Limit Boxing CEO George Rose said fans will see an improved version of Tszyu as he grows more accustomed to life training away from home. Because since pairing up with Pedro, he's been training here in the United States, in Florida more specifically. This is his second training camp with his new team. We'll see even more growth. We saw glimpses in the previous fight. You'll see even more now. All the time in Miami, enjoying the life, but really working hard while he's there. I think we'll see where he's headed to as he heads down the path to becoming a world champion all over again. In a press release, the 42-year-old repeated the old adage fight fans know all too well. This is a massive statement for Aussie boxing.
Tim is one of the sport's biggest stars, and there are massive opportunities ahead for him, but none of that happens if he doesn't get through Dennis Nurja. Nurja is 20-0, ranked number 12 in the world, and he's dangerous. Most fighters are looking for the easy way to their next fight, but that's never been Tim Tszyu. It's a massive risk, but that's why fight fans love him.
Is that the way it is? Should we be worried that Dennis Nurja is going to spoil the party and ruin plans for an Errol Spence Jr. fight later in the year?
And I don't think so. Upon reviewing Dennis Nurja's CV so far, this guy's never fought in a 12-rounder and never faced a world-class opponent. He gives me the impression that he's a guy cut from the same cookie cutter as Anthony Velasquez, the guy that Tim Tszyu fought, to where, yeah, guy's got a respectable record.
He's unbeaten.
Anthony Velasquez was unbeaten, Dennis Nurja is unbeaten, but in terms of quality of competition and actual experience at world level, Dennis doesn't have any. You can surmise that just based on the guys that he's been fighting. Apparently, there is a lesser version of a WBO title on the line in what is this middleweight contest, the WBO International title.
The WBO middleweight champion still is Janibek, albeit out of action and under suspension. He's the full champion. Whoever wins this vacant international title takes a step in the direction of a fight with him.
Rather, a fight for the brown belt, assuming that Janibek decides to keep it at year's end. Momentarily, the focus is Errol Spence Jr., though it's hard to imagine Errol Spence Jr., who's supposed to be the big fish, is really going to travel to Australia to be the away fighter on a no-limit promotion show, because that's the rumor. They're the ones said to be paying for all of this. As Errol Spence Jr. is far and away from his last ring appearance, and he has yet to announce who's supposed to be training him moving forward, because we know it's not going to be his career-long trainer, Derek James.
He's been taking a tour of different gyms across the United States, so he's definitely in the market for a new trainer. Why would he be doing that unless he means to come back? So the signs are there that Errol Spence Jr.'s ring return is imminent. However, if it does happen in Australia and not the United States, he will be so far removed from the people that have wanted to see him come back the most.
Conceding home field advantage to Tim Tszyu. Why would he do that?
Money.
The PBC likely doesn't have the kind of money that Errol is looking for, and after 3 years removed from the sport, he's in need of some. No Limit is willing to offer him something, so if it turns out that he really does box Timmy in Australia, that would have to be the reason. Money.
Errol's gone back to the drawing board. So is Tim. He's in the process of rebuilding himself. If he can beat this Dennis Nurja guy, that will be his second consecutive victory. They're marketing this as Tim Tszyu rolling the dice and taking a chance ahead of a major fight, when, in all actuality, this is exactly the kind of fight he needs to be in against the right kind of opponent. Nobody too dicey, nobody too dangerous, too experienced.
First impressions. I believe that Tim Tszyu will win the fight. It's just a question of, does he win it by way of a points decision, or does he hit the gas and stop this guy? We'll see.
And, he won't mind me saying it, but, AJ had an approach round the back a couple of weeks ago. Do you know how quickly he sent me the message, the screenshot? Seconds. Let me know what you want to reply. And it's like, we're a team, mate. Till the wheels come off, we are a team. And I've got your back always.
That Dana White and the people at Zuffa Boxing would have approached Anthony Joshua the same way they approached Conor Benn. comes as no surprise to me. Of course they want to use him. They want to use him for a big Tyson Fury fight. Big fight that Netflix is willing to pay for. But of course, with the rivalry between Eddie and Dana intensifying, you have to wonder, how do you get that one over the line? How do you do it? They just tried to poach Anthony. That's what the story is. He's not done with boxing. He's not finished. Though, of course, if he's not finished, the Fury fight is the most sensible fight for Anthony Joshua at this late stage in his career. It's the big one. I would argue it's one of the biggest fights, if not the biggest fight, in boxing right now. But the people at Zuffa want to do that fight on Netflix, not the DAZN platform. In truth, doing it on Netflix would be exponentially better. The fight would become exponentially bigger on the Netflix platform than the DAZN platform. So it is a conundrum. And what else does make sense? That with the help of Turkey El Sheikh, all Zuffa can really do is try to buy what somebody else built, because what they're doing on their own, doesn't actually rival anything that Matchroom is doing. While Dana White regularly pats himself on the back after each Zuffa show, what is he actually doing that's on the scale of Warrington versus Wood 2? Undermining everybody else's ability to promote boxing and boxing matches, but you're sort of giving Eddie a compliment the way you keep going after his fighters specifically, and you wouldn't do that if they weren't some of the biggest names in the sport. It's like you're trying to rebuild Matchroom, but with Zuffa on the banner. You know what they say? Imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Boxing's not for him, right? It's the worst business in the world. And I didn't expect him to implode this early. And I almost sit there. I mean, that was one clip, but there's been 4 or 5 clips that he literally hasn't stopped talking about me. I mean, he's called me a pussy 5 or 6 times. He's called me out for a fight, right? And then he says that I'm not competition. I'll be honest with you. I agree with him. Because in boxing right now, as I've said before, he cannot lace my boots. He's sitting there and spinning a narrative like he's created these unbelievable blockbuster shows in stadiums. He ain't out the garage yet. Literally 4 shows in and absolute bang average content.
Eddie isn't wrong, and I'm actually a supporter of Zuffa. I've seen all 4 Zuffa shows, and I liked all 4, but this idea that Dana White is outperforming all the other game in town while being strategically placed on a Sunday, on a day where neither Top Rank or Queensbury or Matchroom are likely to do any shows, you're not actually competing with them. You guys are too afraid to go head-to-head with what they've got because you know you're not really competing with them yet, doing shows on a Sunday. And I can appreciate some additional boxing, some bonus boxing on a Sunday night. But those 4 shows that they've done are not on the scale of anything Matchroom has done or anything that Matchroom is going to do. They're just not. Doesn't mean those weren't good and fun cards with fun fights on them, because there were. Good fights. But fights happening on a much smaller scale in a much more intimate decorum than any of the large-scale stuff you see from Matchroom. So you gotta call a spade a spade. Not rooting for Zuffa to fail, but I don't see where you're outperforming Matchroom.
By doing smaller shows than them?